She's not just Steven Seagal's daughter. She's the woman rewriting WWE history. From movie lights to the wrestling ring, Arissa LeBrock is stepping into a world where fame means nothing and power means everything. But what really happened behind the flashlights before her WWE debut? Get ready, because this is the journey nobody saw coming. The name LeBrock was never just a name. It was a velvet curtain drawn over a life lived in high definition. Arissa felt its quiet, enormous weight long before a wrestling ring ever entered her thoughts. Imagine growing up. Every birthday, every awkward school play filtered through the lens of other people's memories of your parents' iconic, tumultuous past. She wasn't an individual, she was an echo. This constant, low-grade public ownership of her identity became her first invisible adversary. There was a desperate, almost aching need to carve out a space where she was the main character, where her success wasn't a footnote to a blockbuster career, but a headline all its own. She tried fashion, she tried reality TV, but every time the spotlight found her, it quickly swung back to the familiar blinding star of her lineage. The applause felt borrowed. The attention felt conditional. This emotional fatigue, this quiet resignation, settled deep within her, a pressure that felt strangely heavier than any high-flying wrestling maneuver. It was the feeling of being endlessly introduced rather than truly known. It was in this internal, desperate search for genuine validation that a most bizarre, unexpected idea began to take root. A world where the script was thrown out and raw physical presence was the only currency. The initial call from WWE wasn't a grand cinematic moment. It was a casual text, dismissed initially as an industry joke. The idea of Arissa, known for red carpets and designer gowns, trading that for sweat, canvas, and the brutal honesty of a wrestling submission, seemed ludicrous even to her closest friends. Yet, the text lingered. It was the complete, utter irreverence of the proposition that snagged her attention. In WWE, her legacy wouldn't precede her. It would be an obstacle. She couldn't act her way out of a stiff clothesline. She couldn't model her way to a championship title. The arena demanded authenticity in pain and persistence. This was the allure, a stage where the past was just background noise, and her present effort dictated her future. The decision was made in complete silence, a stark contrast to the media frenzy that defined her life. No big announcement, no magazine cover reveal. She walked away from her Hollywood manager with a simple text, canceling commitments, and slipping into a discreet, low-profile training facility in Florida. She told her mother, Kelly LeBrock, who simply offered a knowing, quiet smile, recognizing the hunger in her daughter's eyes. This was the first time Arissa was truly choosing her own fight. The training center was a physical and emotional shock. It was a crucible of sweat, desperation, and total anonymity. For the first time, people weren't whispering about her father's films. They were shouting instructions about her footwork and telling her she was slow. Her soft, privileged body ached in ways she never knew possible. The emotional toll of failure was immediately magnified. In Hollywood, a bad audition meant a private cry and a quick recovery. Here, a clumsy roll or a missed spot meant a painful bruise and the immediate judgment of peers who had sacrificed everything for this chance. They hadn't grown up with swimming pools and limousines. They had lived for this ring. The resentment was palpable. They saw her, the Hollywood tourist, as a shortcut, a headline grabber taking a spot from someone who deserved it more. This silent, icy hostility became the real weight on her shoulders, heavier than any barbell. She found herself working twice as hard, not for the trainer's approval, but for the grudging, tiny nod of respect from the women who saw her not as Steven Seagal's daughter, but as a competitor fumbling the fundamentals. The pain was real, but the validation she craved was still frustratingly out of reach. The pressure cooker environment inevitably led to cracks. In the locker room, a genuine friendship began to form with a veteran NXT trainee named Sasha, a woman who had been grinding for 5 years with no call-up. Arissa finally felt a sense of belonging, a peer who saw her effort. She confided in Sasha about the immense personal pressure, the feeling of being lost between two worlds. This shared vulnerability was a brief, precious oasis. Then came the leak. A private, emotionally raw video she had sent Sasha, detailing her struggles and expressing her feelings of being an outsider, suddenly appeared on a notorious wrestling gossip forum. The comments were brutal. "She's too soft. Just wants an easy career. Crying privilege." The trust was obliterated. Sasha had betrayed her, using Arissa's vulnerability to gain attention and perhaps eliminate a perceived threat. The emotional devastation was profound. It wasn't just a leak. It was the realization that in this unforgiving world, even friendship could be a weapon. This betrayal didn't break her, though. Instead, it hardened her resolve, replacing her gentle curiosity with a deep, focused rage. She realized the lights of the ring were nothing compared to the dark politics of the locker room. Arissa's debut match was everything she didn't want it to be, a spectacle of external noise overshadowing internal grit. The second she stepped through the curtain, the crowd erupted, not with welcoming cheers, but with a cacophony of paparazzi camera flashes and a wave of mixed, almost mocking chants. "Where's Steven? Hollywood junkie!" The social media reaction was instant and brutal. Within minutes, Twitter feeds were ablaze, dissecting her entrance attire, her posture, and her family's history, completely ignoring the complex, months-long physical transformation she had undergone. The announcers, desperate for a hook, focused heavily on her lineage, turning her first moment of professional wrestling into a biographical footnote. Arissa felt a strange, detached calm amidst the chaos. She moved through the match, her moves stiff, but her intent clear. She lost. But as she lay on the mat, looking up at the blinding ceiling lights, she realized the defeat wasn't in the pinfall, but in the fact that the narrative had been stolen from her before the bell even rang. The pressure of legacy was no longer a shadow. It was a spotlight, burning away her moment. The viral moment of her loss created an immediate, aggressive factionalism within the WWE universe. One side, the legacy watchers, mocked her lack of in-ring finesse, dismissing her as a stunt-casting vanity project destined to fail. They saw her as everything wrong with the modern business, fame over skill. They relentlessly pushed clips of her clumsy movements, creating viciously edited memes. However, an unlikely counter-movement emerged. A group of fans, sensing the manufactured drama and the unfairness of the hostile reception, rallied around her quiet resilience. They called themselves the Unknowns, championing her decision to earn respect instead of demanding it. They celebrated the small victories, the determined kick-out, the moment she shrugged off the chance, the visible, raw emotion of her struggle. This polarized reaction created a backstage conflict. Veterans saw the viral attention as distracting and disruptive. Younger talent saw her as an inevitable, if awkward, bridge to mainstream attention. Arissa, meanwhile, stopped reading the comments. The firestorm had taught her a valuable lesson. External noise was irrelevant. The only voice that mattered was the one telling her to get back up. The initial fan backlash and the resulting ratings spike created immediate and intense backstage conflict. The creative team saw her as a goldmine, a natural heel storyline built on Hollywood arrogance, regardless of Arissa's true personality. They wanted her to lean into the spoiled starlet persona, demanding a narrative that involved her arriving in a limo and hiring personal bodyguards. Arissa quietly, firmly refused. She felt this narrative would invalidate the grueling months of work, turning her sacrifice into a joke. This refusal created a tense standoff with a powerful executive. "You are not here to tell stories, Arissa," the executive stated coldly. "You are here to sell them. Your father's name is the story. Play the part." This pressure forced her into an emotional crisis. To succeed, did she have to surrender her hard-earned, authentic struggle and become the person everyone expected her to be? This conflict wasn't about a wrestling move. It was a battle for the integrity of her identity. She realized the WWE system, much like Hollywood, sought to package and sell a convenient lie. Her quiet defiance became her first non-physical wrestling move, a subtle but powerful refusal to be defined by a script written by others. The media chaos eventually forced a public response from her family, but it was the quiet, private messages that mattered most. Her father, Steven Seagal, remained characteristically detached, issuing a brief, generic statement that only fueled the fire. It was her mother, Kelly LeBrock, who became her unexpected anchor. Kelly, having navigated the brutal waters of Hollywood scrutiny herself, sent a simple message that cut through the noise. "Your story is yours. Let them watch you write it." This wasn't professional advice. It was raw, maternal protection. It was a recognition of the emotional pain Arissa was enduring, a pain Kelly understood intimately. This message allowed Arissa to finally compartmentalize the legacy pressure. The family name was a gift and a curse, but her future was unburdened by it. Most surprisingly, her estranged half-siblings began reaching out. They saw her fighting a public battle against the expectations of their shared, complicated parentage. Her fight became their surrogate struggle against a shadow they all lived under. The wrestling ring, ironically, became the catalyst for a fractured family to find a moment of unexpected, silent solidarity. The relentless training, the public humiliation, and the backstage battles finally forged something real within Arissa. She stopped fighting the perception and started focusing solely on the performance. She began training with an intensity that terrified the other rookies, pushing through sprained ankles and exhaustion. Her matches were no longer about winning. They were about showing the audience, and herself, the sheer effort involved. She learned to use the fan hostility as fuel, not a deterrent. When they chanted Hollywood, she'd grit her teeth and execute a move with vicious, palpable intent. The camera, that judgmental eye that had defined her whole life, now captured a raw, beautiful struggle. She started wearing plain black gear, stripping away the glamour, refusing the theatrical props the creative team offered. This was her act of rebellion, to be defined by her work ethic, not her last name. In a dark, empty arena one night, after a particularly grueling session, she realized the twist in her story. The spotlight was the real opponent. The wrestling ring was the only place she could truly hide because the agony and determination were so real, they eclipsed the manufactured narrative. She had found a bizarre physical form of therapy. The final turning point came during a mandated interview. Flanked by an aggressive announcer who kept steering the conversation back to her father's action movies, Arissa was expected to deliver a scripted, arrogant line about how her lineage made her superior. But as the camera light turned red, something snapped. She leaned into the microphone, her voice quiet, but carrying the weight of 1,000 untold struggles. She dismissed the script entirely. She didn't shout. She spoke with the quiet, chilling conviction of a woman finally owning her narrative. "You keep asking about the shadow," she said, looking directly into the lens. "But you miss the point. I didn't come here to escape my name. I came here to devalue it, to prove that every victory, every bruise, belongs only to me. My last name gets me the curtain call, but it's my sweat that earns the applause." The studio went silent. It was a raw, unscripted moment of profound honesty that instantly went viral. This wasn't a cheap wrestling line. It was a psychological mic drop. It changed everything. It didn't make the fans love her, but it made them respect her. Arissa LeBrock, the movie star's daughter, had finally found her true power. The ability to turn the crushing pressure of her past into the undisputed foundation of her future. The journey nobody saw coming wasn't about the debut. It was about the ownership she seized with a single, authentic sentence. The biggest twist of all? Arissa didn't win a championship that year. She never had a 5-star match. Her wrestling career was relatively short, but every time she was mentioned, every time the camera showed her working out, the conversation was different. She had permanently shifted the narrative. She proved that in the world of manufactured spotlights, the truest, most compelling story is often the one written in sweat, silence, and the quiet refusal to play the part you were born into. She didn't leave a legacy in the ring, she left a lesson. Fame is given. Power is taken.